case you're about to see and the characters portrayed are fictional, but the procedure is legally accurate. The characters are played by actors, but the jury is selected from members of the general public.
It will soon become clear to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that witnesses in this case have already been tried and convicted of a series of thefts, including the attempted robbery at knife point of Cyril Hubbard, which is at the centre of this case. And while it is inevitable that we will hear details of their recent criminal past relevant to your deliberations, what is at issue here is not their admitted career as common street criminals, but what the Crown intends to demonstrate was the willful murder of Cyril Hubbard on the night of Friday the 16th of September of this year by the accused, Paul Adams. Mrs. Lister, you live at 4 Cripps Close in the Heaton district of Fulchester.
The White City, yes.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Lister, I didn't quite catch that. The White?
The White City, my lord.
Ah, thank you.
It's what everybody calls our estate. It's a council estate. All the houses are white, or were.
I see. Thank you, Mrs. Lister. All right.
My lord, would you tell the court where you spent the evening of Friday the 16th of September last?
Yes. At the Saxon Public House. I went out about 8:30.
And whom did you meet at that public house, Mrs. Lister?
Mr. William Benton. He was waiting for me outside. He was widowed about the same time as my husband died.
How long have you been widowed, Mrs. Lister?
Close on 10 years.
And how often do you meet Mr. Benton?
Weekends, we go for a drink. Sometimes during the week if we're feeling flush.
Yes. Now, you've told us that Mr. Benton was waiting for you outside the Saxon. Is he equally courteous in walking you home?
Always. I tell him there's no need, but he doesn't like to think of me going out there on my own at that time because of all these, what do you call, attacks, muggings. There's been a lot in the papers.
Perhaps you'll tell us then, Mrs. Lister, what you saw, what you witnessed on your way home that Friday night.
Yes, well, we left just after closing time. It'd be about 25 to 11, and we walked on Main Road for about 1/4 mile so we could cut down Mason's Lane onto the estate. I'm not very keen on going down there.
Why aren't you very keen on using Mason's Lane, Mrs. Lister?
Well, it's the end of Mason's Lane, really. It's nothing but a ginnel, the last bit.
A ginnel being...
Narrow. It's just a track. We call it Thions because it used to be plated. There's a brewery at one side. Was a brewery, it's derelict now. And the other side is where the railway tunnel comes out. It's just a high wall to keep the kids from getting down onto it.
And what lighting is there?
There used to be a couple of lamps, gas lamps, but I don't know what's happened to them now. You get some light from Main Road, neon lights.
But it's not lit directly?
No. There's been a lot of requests into council, but it's a derelict area. As far as they're concerned, it's had it. I suppose they think if they did do any improvements, they'd only get smashed. But there's a lot of folk in White City who'd like to see it opened up properly. It's quickest way back to the estate, you see. It cuts that long corner off.
Do many people use it?
No, not at that time. Some kids and men. Most people have got their own cars any road.
Yes. Now, would you tell us what you saw as you went home along Mason's Lane and the Irons?
Just a second, Mr. Flint. I'd just like to get a point clear in my own mind. You're being most helpful, Mrs. Lister, and the court is grateful to you. Why, though, were you walking home that night? Was it because Mr. Benton was accompanying you?
We usually go long way round, but next day being Saturday, I had to get up early to go on a buster trip. That's the firm's outing to see the illuminations. Cyril Hubbard was going as well.
Yes. Right. Thank you, Mr. Flint. What Mrs. Lister saw when she was walking home that night?
Well, we were just going to cross Main Road. There were 1 or 2 people about when I saw a boy, a teenager, and he crossed in front of us and went down Mason's Lane. I don't think William, Mr. Benson, noticed him, but I did. But I didn't say nothing, because we'd crossed Main Road by then. And then when we got to Thions, we came across Cyril Hubbard on ground, just outside a path in front of us.
Did you know it was Cyril Hubbard?
No, not at first. We were all for walking past thinking it was a drunk or something. And then William said, "That's Cyril, isn't it?" They worked at same firm we were going to Blackpool with. They used same pub as well.
Had he been in the Saxon this particular evening?
Yes, we'd seen him earlier on, in public bar, though.
And did he sometimes walk home this way?
Well, we've sometimes passed him, and once or twice when I've been on my own, I've walked that way back with him. I didn't know it were him, though. His face was to the wall, and he was sort of crouched, all tucked up.
And was this where Mason's Lane suddenly becomes narrow, the part you call the aisle?
Yes, just on side at path. So William stops and said, "Cyril, are you all right?" And I said I thought he was drunk or passing out drunk. We'd seen him just an hour or two before. He looked to me as if he were crying, like a little lad in bed with head to wall, but no sound. And I said, "It's Mrs. Lister, Cyril. What's the matter?" We didn't know he were dying. He must have been in a coma. And I said, "Come on, Cyril, don't act daft. You know us. Come home with me." But he never moved. So William gets down to see to him proper and try and pull him over the path towards us. And I'm looking in my bag for my cigarette lighter to help William to see, when he says, "I think you'd better go and telephone for an ambulance, Duck. Do you think you can manage, or do you want me to come with you?" I knew it was serious then. And there were this couple coming down lane, a girl we knew called Pat and her boyfriend. So she came with me to the phone. We were right glad to see her.
Mrs. Lister, you say that you sometimes passed Cyril Hubbard on the way home. Perhaps you could explain this to the members of the jury.
Explain?
Yes. He was a man younger than yourself, a man in his early 30s, and yet you say you sometimes passed him on the way home.
Well, he did drink rather a lot, especially at weekends.
And this would slow his progress?
Yes.
In what way? Staggering about? Answer the question, please, Mrs. Lister.
Yes.
Had you ever seen him slumped on the ground before?
No, not like that, no.
Not on the ground?
No. He'd stop sometimes, for no reason, and lean against a lamp standard or fences on Main Road. He'd just stand there. And he'd let you go past him and not say good night nor nothing sometimes.
This would explain your words, "Come on, Cyril, don't act daft." Or you thought he might be drunkenly acting about, Playing the fool.
Oh, it were no tricks. He'd no home life, you see. After his mother died, he'd nobody.
Quite. I'm not looking for reasons for his behaviour on these occasions, just establishing that he did get drunk regularly. And indeed, the hospital post-mortem does indicate that on the night of his death, Cyril Hubbard had drunk the equivalent of... It was beer he drank, wasn't it, Mrs. Lister?
Yes.
Yes, the equivalent of some 10 to 12 pints of beer.
Well, he did drink rather a lot. And then he'd tell you his story. It was all about his mum before she died. He got upset ever so easy.
Tearful or violent, Mrs. Lister?
Oh, not with me, never violent.
Well, one would hope not. Oh, but you have known times, Mrs. Lister, have you not, when he's been thrown out of the Saxon public house for aggressive, drunken behaviour?
Once or twice, yes.
Once or twice?
Just after his mother died. He was lonely. A lonely man. Sad. A sad man.
And occasionally a violent man. Thank you, Mrs. Lister.
My lord, my learned colleague, Mrs. Bryce, and myself are not contesting the Home Office pathologist's report. Cyril Hubbard died of a knife wound entering the rib cage and penetrating the heart, the knife entering the body to a depth of some 2.5 inches. The evidence is consistent with the deceased being stabbed or impaling himself on a sharp knife. Mr. Hubbard was certified dead on arrival at the hospital by the casualty officer on duty at 11:15 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Flint. You will have the report later, members of the jury, if you wish to examine the medical evidence in more detail. All right.
Detective Chief Inspector Slater, you interviewed the defendant, Paul Adams, at police headquarters on the morning following Cyril Hubbard's death. Would you describe to the jury what was said on that occasion?
I introduced myself to the accused, and I put it to him that he'd been involved in an attack on Cyril Hubbard on the evening of the 16th of September in Mason's Lane. I then cautioned him.
And what was the accused's reply on being questioned about the mugging of Cyril Hubbard?
He denied the charge, but I didn't use the word mugging. It's an emotive term that we try to avoid in the police force.
Really? I'd have thought it was rather appropriate in this instance, wouldn't you, Chief Inspector? Straightforward, sharp and brutal. But no matter. Yes, indeed. You asked him if he attacked Cyril Hubbard with the intention of robbing him of personal property. What exactly was his reply?
He replied, no chance.
You don't think he denied the accusation because he had reservations about your use of the emotive little term mugging?
Get on with it, please, Mr. Flint.
Well, odd. What followed, Chief Inspector?
Well, then I cautioned the accused again, and I told him that the victim, Cyril Hubbard, had died as a result of the attack, and that I was investigating the case as a case of murder, and that it was in his own best interest, as he was suspected of being involved, to tell us all he knew about it. At this point, may I refer to the notes, my lord?
Oh, yes, of course, certainly.
Thank you, sir. At this point, the accused said, it was me, I didn't mean to hurt him, honest, it was an accident. I then asked him if the knife that was found near the body was his. He agreed and said that he'd used it on the assault on Hubbard. He was then charged.
I'd like to bring the knife into evidence now, my lord, if I may. May the witness be shown Exhibit 1. Is that the knife found by the body of Cyril Hubbard and which the accused attested was his?
Yes, it is, sir.
It is of German make, my lord, a relic of the last war.
Do take it out of its sheath if you want to, members of the jury. Take care to handle the flat edges, though, rather than the sharp ones, won't you? Right, carry on.
And did the defendant then make a statement, Chief Inspector?
After being cautioned, he made a full written statement, sir.
Just the relevant parts of this, please, Chief Inspector. The assault itself.
Ian was looking out at the end of Mason's Lane. When Hubbard got to the bit they call the irons, Vinnie got hold of him, forcing his head down so he couldn't see who we were. I was holding the knife and was frisking him. He was about 30 and well dressed. He was pissed. It usually only took a few seconds to get their wallets. If he hadn't struggled, we'd have been clean away with no bother. But he was fighting Vinnie all the time, and he somehow got free. He was stronger than he looked. Vinnie scarpered. He shouted at me to follow him, but the bloke came straight at me like a madman when I got my back to the wall. He must have gone straight into the knife. Ian Parker was running down the lane to tell us a couple were coming. 1 minute this bloke's all over me, the next minute he's down on his knees in front of me. He took the knife down with him. It was dark. I couldn't see. I didn't know what had happened. I thought the knife had just gone through his jacket. I can remember wondering if he'd had a heart attack or something, though it sounds stupid now to say it in view of what happened. Ian came close and said, "What's up?" The bloke was flat on the ground, collapsed, slumped across my feet. I was still against the wall, leaning down over him, looking for the knife, but he must have been on top of it. He just sagged onto the ground. I must have been just standing there gawping, frightened out of my life. He may have hit me before he dropped, I don't know. Ian said something like, "What's up with him?" or "What's up with you?" I said, "I don't know, I think I've killed him." There were these people coming. We had to get away. I can't even remember dropping his wallet, but I must have done. I don't know what happened exactly, and I still don't.
Thank you, Chief Inspector.
How would you describe the accused's manner, Chief Inspector, when he was told of Cyril Hubbard's death? When he confessed?
Very quietly spoken.
And he made a full statement straight away?
Oh, yes.
Would you say that the defendant's willingness to cooperate on being informed of the true seriousness of the case suggested contrition, even remorse?
He didn't cry or break down, if that's what you mean.
Don't be obtuse, Chief Inspector. 18-year-old youths capable of street crimes are not prone to histrionics, I would have thought. Oh, surely, Chief Inspector. Paul Adams' immediate admission of involvement in this affair, doesn't this suggest to you a degree of repentance or indeed remorse
My Lord,
for his...
I'm not sure, with all due respect to him, that the Chief Inspector is competent to judge what was the accused's state of mind on this occasion.
Thank you, Mr. Flint, but if the Chief Inspector, as an experienced officer, has anything to say concerning the manner or bearing of the defendant, I would be interested to hear it.
Well, he was quiet for a few seconds after he heard of the victim's death, and then when he began to speak, he gave me the impression of somebody who was trying to control their emotions. What he said, and you've heard it word for word, was very measured, precise as could be. What his emotions were, I've no idea. Whether contrition, remorse, I don't know. Perhaps he just knew where his best interests lay. He's no fool.
And his account of the night's events has never varied?
No, he's always stuck to what he said.
Were there any signs when you interviewed him of the accused's having been hit or bruised in any way?
There was a small cut under the right eye, and when the doctor examined him, there was some evidence of bruising about the body, but nothing serious.
But commensurate with his having been in a fight of some kind?
Oh, yes, certainly.
And finally, Chief Inspector, without, as I'm sure you will realise, prejudicing my client's case in any way, what led your investigation so soon to Mr. Adams?
Oh, Paul Adams was named as a possible culprit in a statement made that night by Vincent White.
Your name is Vincent White, usually known, I believe, as Vinny, of 13 Glade Terrace, Fulchester. Say yes or no to the questions, will you, Mr. White?
Yeah.
Have you been tried and convicted for your part in a series of thefts also involving the defendant?
Yeah.
And you've been tried and convicted for your participation with Paul Adams and Ian Parker in the attempted robbery of Cyril Hubbard.
Yeah.
As Mr. Flint suggested in his opening remarks to you, members of the jury, it's not for you to censure or condemn the recent and admitted criminal activities of this witness, nor indeed of the defendant. They have already been tried and convicted of those offences. Such details of their criminal past as may emerge is to enable you to establish exactly what took place in Mason's Lane on the night of September the 16th. The defendant is charged on an indictment of murder, and he has pleaded not guilty to that. It is that indictment you're concerned with and no more. All right, Mr. Flint?
Well, now, Mr. White, I'd like you to describe to the jury your role in these robberies with the defendant.
What?
I'm asking you for a description of how you would steal from your victims.
Oh, I was biggest. I go up behind a bloke.
See, can you hear these members of the jury? Now, you're really going to have to speak up, Mr. White. You're here to give important evidence, and the jury have got to hear this evidence. Do you understand? That all right, Mr. Flint?
Continue, Mr. White. You'd go up behind your victims and...
No, I'd get my hands round his neck and force his head down.
Would you please explain, as clearly and loudly as you can, the purpose of this?
So they couldn't see who we were.
So they couldn't see who you were. And what would happen then?
Well, we'd go through the pockets.
The defendant?
Yeah.
Go on, Mr. White.
Well, then I'd push them one way or another.
Where to?
I'd get mixed in with the crowd, pubs.
Did these attacks usually take place at night, then?
Yeah.
When? At weekends?
Yeah, depended. Fridays, Saturdays.
Now, how did you pick out your victims?
What they were wearing.
Sorry, I still can't catch this.
By what they were wearing, my lord, the way they were dressed.
Yes, look, Mr. White, will you please project your voice over to the jury? Talk to them to make them hear, as if they were asking the questions. Look at them now, will you? And speak to them as if they were the other side of the room, right, or even the street. All right.
Well, who were your victims? Were they usually men?
Men, yeah.
Always men?
Yeah.
Any particular age?
Oh, about 30 or 40.
It depended on how prosperously they were dressed.
Yeah.
And how much would you make from one of these attacks?
Well, about 20 quid, a bit more. Sometimes it depended.
Now, what degree of violence was involved in your attacks on these men? Your muggings, Mr. White?
Bit.
Forcing their heads down?
So they couldn't see who we were.
And then pushing them down to cover your escape?
Oh, we'd get away easy enough.
Was it just a question of temporarily unbalancing them? Of throwing them off balance for a few seconds?
Well, we legged it.
Did you ever use knives in your attacks?
No.
Was this the first time Paul Adams had brought along a knife?
My lord, this has not been established.
Yes, indeed.
I'll rephrase the question, my lord. Mr. White, on the night of September the 16th, was a knife used in your attack?
Yeah.
And who brought along that knife? Answer the question. Paul Adams. Was this the first time he'd brought along a knife?
You must answer the questions, Mr. White.
I don't know.
Well, let me put it this way, then. Was this the first time he'd used a knife in an attack? Had he ever used a knife to threaten a victim before?
No.
Well, why, then, did he have a knife on that particular evening?
Oh, for his dad's army.
Well, yes, but why did he bring it?
Got it out that night and he was cleaning it.
Just cleaning it?
Yeah.
Did he let you handle it?
Yeah.
Was the knife sharp?
Yeah.
Did the accused give any reason for bringing this lethal object out of the house on this particular evening?
No.
But to carry such a knife excited no particular comment from him.
Oh, he was going to show it to Parker.
Ian Parker?
Yeah.
Why would he want to show it to Ian Parker?
It's something different.
Something different? What do you mean by that? You mean the knife was some different way of attacking your victims?
No, just a laugh, that's all.
The knife was just a laugh. To be used threateningly to scare the victims for a laugh, a joke. Or the knife was to be used, and that would be fun.
Millard.
Yes, you mustn't lead the witness, Mr. Flint. Phrase just a laugh was Mr. White's, unless I'm very much mistaken. It wasn't the defendant's. Did the accused say anything to you about his reasons for carrying the knife that night?
Well, it was something different. It was his dad's. He didn't know I'd got it. He was going to show it to Parker.
Where did he carry it?
I took it down at the pub.
No, I mean, where on his body? On his person?
On his belt under his jacket.
I see. Right, thank you.
Was anything said about the possible use of the knife while you were talking during that evening?
When we were sitting outside on pub wall.
At the Saxon? After you'd met Ian Parker?
Yeah, and before.
And what did Ian Parker have to say about the knife?
No, thought it was smart.
Worthy of admiration. Now, when did you decide to rob Cyril Hubbard?
Down there at pub.
At the Saxon? Where you first saw him?
Yeah.
Was anything said about using the knife at this stage?
No.
Now, after it had been inspected, did the knife go back into Paul Adams's belt between the Saxon and Mason's Lane?
Yeah.
And when did Paul Adams take the knife out next?
Down by Irons.
At the bottom of Mason's Lane, where your attack was to take place?
Yeah.
Did he take the knife out in readiness?
Yeah.
And when you trapped Cyril Hubbard, did you say anything? Or did the accused say anything to warn him that he had a knife?
No.
He didn't threaten him as he struggled.
No.
He didn't warn the victim that he had a knife.
No.
And then when he broke free, you ran. What did you call out to Adams?
I said, let's get out. Something like that, anyway.
And when was the next time you saw Adams?
Been about 10 minutes later.
Where?
White City.
Back in the safety of the White City estate. What did he say to you?
He said, I think I've bloody killed him.
Join us again tomorrow when the case of the Queen against Adams will be resumed in the Crown Court. The case you're about to see and the characters portrayed are fictional, but the procedure is legally accurate. The characters are played by actors, but the jury is selected from members of the general public. Paul Adams is accused of murdering Cyril Hubbard, knifing him during an attempted robbery. His accomplice on that night, Vincent White, is answering prosecution questions.
I'm going to go back over your association with the accused, Mr. White. How long have you known Adams?
Since we were kids, he lived near us.
You didn't go to the same schools together, though, did you? Would you tell the jury which school you attended until you were 11?
Hedge House.
Hedge House. And what kind of a school is Hedge House? My intention is not to embarrass or discomfort you, but to establish facts relevant to this case. My lord, if I might explain, Hedge House is a local authority's special school for the educationally subnormal.
It's a nutter school.
Rather crudely put, but no doubt the way other children might describe it.
Oh, got moved back in seniors.
Indeed. You eventually attended the local secondary school, along with Paul Adams. You're the same age, aren't you, Mr. White?
Yeah.
And wasn't he in one of what are called the top classes of the comprehensive? Leaving school with, I believe, 2 O-levels.
My lord, fascinating though these educational details may be.
Yes, I really am waiting to see the point of this, Mr. Flint.
It's just this, my lord. Mr. White, who was it who first had the idea for these robberies? These most effective quick grab methods?
No, no.
Don't know. Or can't remember. You've known the accused for many years. You played together. It would be strange if you didn't feel some kind of loyalty towards him. Let me put another question to you then. Who was it who brought Ian Parker into your activities?
Him.
And what was his role? What part did he play when he accompanied you?
No, he was a lookout. Sometimes went through the pockets, but he just tagged on.
So from being a team of 2, you became a gang of 3 and extended your activities. Did Parker never help you when one of your victims objected or struggled? This bit of violence you've referred to, some of your victims did struggle, didn't they?
Yeah, sometimes.
Only sometimes. On being surprised from behind and having their heads forced down. And are you telling us that the accused never brought along a knife in case one of these occasional struggles got out of hand?
Look, he never carried no knife.
Nor any weapon?
No.
But he had a knife on the night of September the 16th, did he not?
Yeah?
And he brandished it. He held it in front of Cyril Hubbard that night, did he not?
Yeah?
He had a knife on the evening of September the 16th. And he held up Cyril Hubbard with that knife. And who was it, Mr. White, in case we've forgotten, who said to you, "I think I've bloody killed him"?
Him.
Indeed. The defendant. Thank you, Mr. White.
I had hoped it would be avoidable, my lord, but I have been increasingly unhappy about the impression that is being created of my client's role in these affairs that, to my mind, do not coincide with the facts. I am therefore reluctantly going to bring details of this witness's character before the court.
There are certain dangers for your client in pursuing this course, Mrs. Bryce. I trust your client is aware of these dangers.
I have discussed this eventuality with Mr. Adams, my lord. I intend myself to bring details of his own character to the jury's attention.
Very well. Please continue, Mrs. Bryce.
My lord, I'm going to bring to the jury's attention only a number of the criminal offences listed. Mr. White, aged 8 years and 9 months, were you convicted of breaking into a warehouse with one other boy and stealing toys and other property to the value of £9?
Yeah?
And was the other boy Paul Adams?
Yeah, well...
In September 1972, you were 12. Weren't you charged outside a football ground with carrying a knife? An offence you admitted to.
Yeah?
1973, aged 13 years and 10 months. You were convicted with another youth of jostling a woman waiting at a bus stop and taking a purse from her basket. You were, at the time, an absconder from a remand home and had been sleeping rough. Is that right? A yes or no, Mr. White?
Yes.
Was the other youth Paul Adams?
No.
No. And aged 15, you were convicted of theft from an old person's bungalow, also of assaulting the occupant, a man of 69. You were sent to Borstal, is that correct? Were you sent to Borstal for that assault?
Yes.
Where you again attempted to abscond? Were you eventually released from Borstal in January of this year, Mr. White?
Yeah.
Meeting up again with Paul Adams. Now, what exactly passed between you and Paul Adams on the evening of September the 16th? It was just the two of you to begin with, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You called for the defendant?
Yeah.
By arrangement?
What?
Had he asked you to call?
No, we always went out Fridays.
On the trail of excitement, But let's be quite clear about this. Had you gone out the previous weekend? At any time during the weekend?
Don't remember.
Or the weekend before? Or the weekend before that?
Yes.
But unsuccessfully. You see, the charges you've admitted to include no crime at all during this period. The last offence you asked to be taken into consideration was a full month before, Saturday, August the 20th. So, What did you do between August the 20th and Friday, September the 16th? No suitable victims?
Oh, we went drinking one night.
No, just one night. Who called for who?
I went for him. I always went for him.
You always went for him, of course. As the prosecution has suggested, the defendant was the leader of your little outfit. It doesn't do, does it, for leaders to go knocking on other people's doors? Or is it the mountain and Muhammad, Mr. White? Did you not call for him at any time between August the 20th and September the 16th, apart from this one evening when you went drinking?
Well, it started work.
And that prevented his going out in the evening?
No, he sometimes went there.
Where was he?
Round at Parker's.
He went round to Ian Parker's. He never called on you, but he would go round to him. They went to Leeds together one weekend, didn't they? Do you know what this suggests to me, Mr. White? That my client was bored with your company. Indeed, it had enough of your activities altogether. When did you first meet Ian Parker?
About 6 months back.
Did you introduce him to Paul Adams, or did Paul Adams introduce him to you?
No, he came along with Paul one night.
He was a friend of Paul's, and became a friend of yours as well.
Well, I knocked about with him, yeah.
But not a friend. He was a lookout, wasn't
But
he?
he tagged on.
Ah, yes. You didn't like him very much, did you, Mr. White?
Well, they were all right.
Did you ever see him without Paul?
No.
Did you see many people apart from Paul? Tell us, who were your particular mates, Mr. White?
Well, I see people, yeah.
Who?
Well, I've got a brother.
Ah, yes, but he's in prison at the moment, isn't he?
My lord, is this really necessary?
I'm trying to establish facts, my lord, and not attempting to impugn this witness via his relatives.
Is your brother in prison, Mr. White? I think you've made your point, Mrs. Bryce.
Thank you, my lord. Have you any mates apart from the accused? Remember, you're under oath, Mr. White. Do you still see any of your old Borstal acquaintances? Which Borstal was it, by the way? Answer the question.
It was Leicester.
Leicester, some distance away. Is it not the case, Mr. White, that on your release from Borstal you found there was no one to pal around with but your old childhood friend, Paul Adams? That you conspired together in a few crimes during his period of unemployment for a bit of a laugh, a thrill, or for old time's sake? And that as this summer drew to a close, you found it more and more difficult to interest Paul Adams in your escapades, in which you were something more of an expert than he? That he had a new mate, and you were feeling a little left out? That night you visited him, and he was in. The night of September the 16th. Was he sitting at the kitchen table, cleaning a knife?
Yeah.
You expressed interest in that knife, didn't you? What exactly did you say?
Well, I said it were all right.
Smart.
Yeah.
Worthy of admiration. A useful-looking knife.
Yeah.
For what? Chopping onions?
Hey? Look, I said it were all right, that's all.
All right for what, though? Didn't you mean a villainous-looking knife?
Hey?
Oh, come, Mr. White. I don't think you're as much of a fool as you sometimes make out to be. I said a villainous-looking knife. One that would impress people. Well, the sort of people that you've associated with, Mr. White. One that you would have liked yourself.
No.
No? Didn't you suggest to Paul Adams that it was about time you got up to your old tricks together that evening? And didn't he say he was going out for a quiet night with Ian Parker, as he had done for the previous month or so? It was you tagging on that particular evening, wasn't it? What happened at the first pub you went to that evening? The Cross Keys?
We got chucked out.
Why?
The manager told us to get out.
Who to get out?
Parker.
Ian Parker. He'd recognised him as being underage. Oh, and quite right, too. But it triggered off a chain of events he couldn't possibly have foreseen. What happened then?
We went with him.
One out, all out. And then?
Went to Saxon.
Why?
We could sit outside there.
While someone else went in to fetch the drinks for Ian Parker. Who went in for those drinks?
Can't remember.
Don't prevaricate. It was you. You've given evidence on this before. There's no argument about it. The landlord at the Saxon recognised you waiting at the bar. Standing next to whom? Mr. White, you are under oath.
The bloke.
The bloke. Now the deceased. Cyril Hubbard. Well on his way to his usual Friday night stupor. And weren't your companions, with a drink or two inside them, having been turfed out of the Cross Keys and now sitting outside on a chilly September night, weren't they a little more receptive to the idea you put to them when you brought the drinks out?
It weren't just my idea.
No. Cyril Hubbard came out to the yard to the lavatories, didn't he? You all had a chance to see the condition he was in. Easy game. Ian Parker even knew him slightly, living on the same estate. But without you, Mr. White, the job would never have been done. Paul Adams and Ian Parker didn't do jobs together. It was going to be a quiet night. Not the quiet night of a Doris Lister or a William Benton, but a quiet night nonetheless. Until you attached yourself to them. Didn't you say, we're going to do it with knives tonight?
No.
And as you walked down Mason's Lane and came towards the irons, didn't you take the knife out of Paul Adams' belt, excited at the prospect of using it? And didn't he take it back again, afraid of what you might do with it?
No.
This so-called willful act of violence was casual and unpremeditated all the way along. Even bungled when it came down to it. Botched. You botched it, Mr. White. You drew the knife intending to threaten Cyril Hubbard with it for a laugh, a change. The defendant took it from you, afraid with your violent record of what you might get up to. Because you wanted this knife, and there was some dispute about it. You weren't properly prepared and had to attack your victim from the front, not from behind as you usually did. And when he struggled and you ran, Cyril Hubbard barged forward onto the knife that the defendant had just taken from you. True or false, Mr. White?
I didn't use no knife.
No. With your violent record, it's just as well you didn't. What do people still call you? Apart from Vinny, that is.
What?
You have a nickname, Mr. White. One that you've had since childhood. Or one that has stuck, presumably because it's so appropriate. What is that name, Mr. White? Your nickname, Mr. White.
Killer!
Chief Inspector, would you read out the antecedents of the defendant? All of them, please.
1967, aged 8 years, 7 months, convicted with Vincent White of stealing toys.
Yes, toys worth £9, wasn't it, Chief Inspector?
That's right.
And there are no other examples of collaboration with Vincent White until this last year.
None.
And the other convictions, please, Chief Inspector.
Aged 13, convicted with 3 other boys of stealing coins from a slot machine by forcing a wire up the slot. Ordered to go to an attendance centre for 12 hours and to pay £3 costs. 14 years, 1 month, charged with attempted taking and driving away a motor vehicle, given 1 year's conditional discharge. 14 years and 3 months, convicted with 2 other boys of taking and driving away a motorbike. The mother complained that her son was truanting from school and had run away from home several times over the previous 6 months. She stated that he was beyond her control. A fit person order was made to the local authority.
I think it worth stating the obvious, Chief Inspector. There are no convictions for assault, violence, or the carrying of weapons, are there?
None.
Thank you, Chief Inspector. Your name is Paul Michael Adams.
Yeah.
Of 9 Glade Terrace, Fulchester.
That's right.
And you have recently been employed as a driver's mate with Heslop Brothers of Fulchester.
Yeah.
You first stole with Vincent White when you were both youngsters. How would you describe the relationship between the two of you?
Then?
Then and now.
Well, we played together. Same street. He were always round our house. He used to ask if he could come and pee on our carpet.
I think you may have to interpret that remark to the court, Mr. Adams.
Well, he did it once as a kid, peed on our carpet. Me dad thought it were funny, but me mam didn't. Me dad used to get him to go up to me mam and say, "Annie, can I pee on your carpet?" You know, it were a joke. No, he'd get turfed out of his own house in the morning and come straight round to us.
And you stole from a warehouse together?
It were just down the road from where we lived. But there were all kinds of jobs we did together.
Jobs?
Well, lifting stuff. A lot we never got caught for. You know, fruit from market and bits of stuff from shop on Saturday morning.
Now, did you work as a team, you and Vincent White?
No, there was scores. A good 20 kids just from round our area. Depending on who you were knocking about with. We were all at it when we were little. You know, you get one kid to cause a distraction. One kid had a fit once, get shop assistant's attention, while the rest of you filled your pockets up. And Killer, Vinny, he'd be with you sometimes, or sometimes it'd be somebody else. He had this thing about diaries once, you know, pinching them. He used to collect them, great handfuls of them. He never did out with them. He couldn't even write at the time. He wouldn't have known what to put any road. We used to say to him, "Filled up your diary today yet, Killer?"
Is this strictly relevant, Mrs. Bryce?
I'm trying to establish, my lord, the degree of collusion between my client and the previous prosecution witness, and the premeditation, if any, of their criminal activities. But I will, with your permission, try to bring things a little more up to date.
Yes, I think that would be appropriate.
Now, how carefully thought out were these petty crimes?
Well, we'd sometimes work out what we were going to get up to night before. We knew what we were doing, like, but most of it was spur-of-the-moment stuff.
Stealing from shops?
Yeah, the kid who once pretended to have a fit, epileptic fit, he'd seen it on the telly. Well, that were worked out, but it weren't for what we took away. You see, it were chemists' boots where they sell pens, crayons, stuff like that. You know, the kid who had the epileptic fit, he even walked off with pencil manager had forced in his mouth to stop him damaging himself. It were a joke.
Now, the taking away of motor vehicles for which you were brought before the courts, you were lightly treated, weren't you? A conditional discharge.
Yeah, me dad had just left home.
How old were you?
13? Yeah, 13.
He had left your mother.
Yeah.
He was killed shortly afterwards, wasn't he?
Yeah.
A motor accident.
Motor smash, yeah.
When?
Oh, that Christmas.
And after persistent truanting and absences from home and your bout of thieving at that time, you went into care. When did you return home to live with your mother?
It was a few weeks before I left school.
Now, had you seen anything of Vincent White during this period?
Well, he'd just been packed off to Borstal at that time, or were just going. No, not much.
So, when did you meet up with him again?
I'd left school.
And were you unemployed?
No. Yeah, I'd had a job, but I'd packed it in.
What was the job?
Well, it was a warehouse at a bottling plant, labouring.
Despite your qualifications?
Well, I were waiting to go in Navy, so it didn't really matter what I was doing, but then I got turned down for that.
The Navy?
Yeah. And Killer came back about that time. We did a shot one time. You know, it was I dare if you dare. It's all been admitted to. We got in round the back through a window. There were another kid with us, but he didn't come in. It were cigarettes, stuff like that. It was something to do. We auctioned it off, daft prices, great queues round the back of our house until Mum came home and broke party up.
Yes. Now, how did your assault start, the so-called muggings?
Well, we never sat down and worked it all out like he suggested. You know, all that stuff with the head. Killer forcing their heads down. That just happened when we were playing about, you know, acting the fool, fighting a bit. Now it's serious. And one night we're hanging around downtown with this kid who used to tart, you know, sell himself. Looking for trade, meat rack we used to call it. And this bloke comes past me, pissed, drunk as out. So we used to go down and watch this guy, you know, he knew we were there like. So he's leading this bloke round down the back of the houses and looking back at us, winking. And we did him. You know, just pickpocketing really, dead easy. He was that far gone, I don't think he knew what were happening to him.
How many of these assaults did you carry out?
Oh, about 10 or 12 over a couple of months.
What happened on August the 20th, the last offence you admitted to?
We did one dinner time, lunch, waiting for pubs to come out. Same idea, but we nearly got nicked for it. That's when I decided to pack it in.
Because you nearly got caught, or was it because you started a job shortly after that?
We're getting job, I think.
Had you been looking for a job during this period?
Well, eventually, yes, but when I walked out of bottling plant, there were a month or two when I weren't doing out, but just kicking around and lying in bed until dinner time.
I see. And it was during this period that you were stealing?
Yeah.
Were you stealing for money?
Well, we didn't get much, did we?
What was it then?
What, why we stole? Made you sweat.
You mean it was exciting?
Yeah.
Before you move on, Mrs. Bryce, I'd just like to clarify one or two points. How much money would you expect to take away from these crimes, Mr. Adams?
Well, only 5 or 10 quid. It wasn't very much.
Yes. Mr. White said £20.
Well, 20 between you, but 10 each. We're never more than that.
And the inevitable intimidation and violence of these crimes, was this part of the excitement of these acts for you?
Part, yeah.
Important part?
No.
Didn't it add to the feeling of making you sweat?
Yeah, but I never did it for that, though. It just made a change.
Change from your day-to-day life?
Yeah, sitting about.
Unemployment?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Bryce.
Now, the court has heard that on the evening of September the 16th, you were cleaning the knife that the court has seen as Exhibit 1. Why were you cleaning it, Mr. Adams?
Well, I'd found it a couple of days before. I were looking for a screwdriver in back a kitchen table drawer. Stair light had bust. I were going to mend it and I come across this knife wrapped up in a bit of cloth. Well, me dad had brought it back with him from Germany when he were on his national service. He used to be hanging up in the living room. There were a sword as well, a German dress sword. But I don't know what happened to that. He might have taken it with him when he left, or me man might have got rid of it. But anyway, I'd not seen the knife for a couple of years. I'd forgotten about it. And I were cleaning it, that's all, Friday night. I were going to tack it up on my own wall.
In your bedroom?
Yeah, when Killer, Vinny arrived.
Vincent White.
He were dead interested in it. Where'd I got it from, all that.
Did he carry knives?
Yeah, before he got packed off to Borstal.
Had he a knife on him this particular evening?
No, he was still under supervision, whatever you call it, after coming out.
Of Borstal?
Yeah.
And what did you do with that knife?
Well, I put it back in my drawer. I could see you were interested in it. He asked to borrow it, to take it. But,
You were going to put it up on your bedroom wall?
yeah, but I was going to put it up right.
Well, and then what happened?
Well, I put it back in the drawer. You know, I was going out with Parky.
Was anybody else in the house?
Yeah, my mother. She came in about that time, 8.
She came in during Vincent White's visit?
Yeah.
Where were you going that night?
Well, I was going out for a few quick drinks with Ian Parker.
Not with Vincent White?
No, I'd not seen him for a week or two.
Would you say it was Vincent White who tagged on that particular evening?
Oh, yeah, I told him I was going out with Ian Parker, and he says, aren't you going to show it to him? Well, I were like, but when I put it up on my wall, he says, aren't you going to bring it along? And that's how I had it with me.
Mr. Adams, had you ever used a knife before in any one of your assaults?
No, it weren't worth the risk. Anyway, there were no need, because I was just going out for a few drinks with Ian Parker. If I'd have had my other trousers on, these trousers, I'd have never have taken it, because there'd be nowhere to put it, see? But Vinny arrived, we got talking, I didn't even bother to get changed. I just put a jacket on and walked out.
With the knife in your belt?
Yeah.
It's getting late, Mrs. Bryce. I think we'll leave it there today and resume tomorrow.
Thank you, my lord.
Court will rise.
You can join us again tomorrow when the case of the Queen against Adams will be concluded in the Crown Court. The case you're about to see and the characters portrayed are fictional, but the procedure is legally accurate. The characters are played by actors, but the jury is selected from members of the general public who will retire at the end of the trial to reach their own unrehearsed verdict. Paul Adams, a self-confessed thief, is accused of the murder of Cyril Hubbard, who, according to Adams, was accidentally knifed during his assault on him. Adams is explaining that night's events.
At what point during the evening of September the 16th was it suggested that you use that knife in your attack on Cyril Hubbard?
When Cyril Hubbard came out of the pub to go to the toilets. See, it was dark on the bit of the pub wall where we were sitting, but there was a light by the toilets. And Killer says...
Vincent White?
Yeah. He said there was this bloke propping up the bar inside. So we all got a good look at him, and Ian Parker said he knew him. You see, he lived on the same estate, White City. That's how we knew how we'd be getting home. I think it was Vinny who said something like, come on, let's do it with knife tonight. But we hadn't decided anything. We'd had 1 or 2 drinks, that's all. We might easily have gone and got some chips instead.
Had you decided to rob Cyril Hubbard?
No, not even that. Killer had said there was this bloke inside, and we had done this kind of thing before. Ian Parker weren't very keen because he'd seen him about.
Were you keen?
Well, I'd finished, but
But, what were you going to say?
well, nobody wants to be shown up, do they?
Thank you, Mrs. Bryce.
Are you saying that you went along with the robbery to show that you hadn't lost your nerve?
Yeah.
Were you at any point during the evening being taunted on this by Vincent White?
Yeah.
When was the knife drawn, Mr. Adams?
Going down Mason's Lane.
Why was it drawn? Did you draw it?
No.
Who did?
Killer.
Vincent White.
Well, he pulled it out of me belt. He'd been going on about it all night, one-track mind. See, you were really keen on the tough guy stuff. He took hold of it. I pulled it back off of him. He'd been had up for doing this bloke once before. He weren't safe. He were really keen on using the knife, you know, really wetting himself. I said, come on, Killer, let's leave it, shall we? We could have walked straight through onto the estate.
You took the knife from him because you were afraid of what he might do with it.
Well, there were no need for it. I said, I'll take the knife, you do what you always do. But he wants it. I said, I'll carry it, you just go at him from behind.
Did you mean I'll carry it on the belt, or I'll have it for use in the attack?
Well, I don't know. All I was interested in was to get it off of him. I weren't going to use it anyway. You see, that's how it all gets messed up. See, we're standing there barneying about who's having the bloody knife, and Cyril Hubbard's on his way. We could hear him coming. So Killer's in the wrong position to go for him and has to go at him from the front. Well, he kind of got hold of him properly, and this guy's stronger than he looks. So while Vinny's trying to get hold of him right road, Hubbard sort of goes for him. I reached up to get his wallet, and when Vinny turned off and ran, Hubbard comes charging at me. The knife was in my hand. I thought it had just gone through his coat at first.
You're saying he ran onto the knife?
Yeah. He just came straight at me.
What happened then?
Well, he sort of slips down onto his knees, and I thought he'd had a seizure or something.
Had Vincent White said anything at all during all this?
Yeah.
What?
He said, do him. Do him.
What did you understand him to mean by that?
I used the knife.
And did you?
No, he just came straight at me like a flaming madman where I stood with me back to the wall. You see, it's narrow there. The knife was in my hand.
But you didn't stab him with it?
No. He just came straight at me.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Mr. Adams, are you trying to tell us that when the deceased Cyril Hubbard came for you, you allowed yourself to be pushed, quietly and passively back against a wall?
Well, there weren't much room anywhere, and he did come at me.
A remarkable slowness of reaction on your part. Isn't it in fact the truth that when Cyril Hubbard fought off Vincent White, the brawn of the group, you, Mr. Adams, the brains of the group, went for him with the knife, scared, as you say, of being shown up? Wasn't your reputation at stake? And you had to get away, didn't you? There was no other way. You had, as you so accurately said, your back to the wall. You were trapped.
I never went for him.
And you didn't really want to rob him. We know, Mr. Adams. After 10, 11, 12 jobs, you can't quite remember how many. After a career of crime in which you've been markedly more successful than your friend Vincent White in escaping conviction by your own account, you're telling us you suddenly had scruples. Because of what, was it? Your fear of being caught? Oh, no, your job, you said. How long had you been in this job?
3 weeks.
You didn't feel like walking out of this job, Mr. Adams?
I liked the work.
So you date your conversion from the day you became a driver's mate?
Look, I've told you I'd not done a job with... I'd not committed a crime for over a month.
Well done, Mr. Adams. Well done. Yes, you've told us an awful lot, Mr. Adams, about your father dying, friends who could simulate epileptic fits, and your weariness of unemployment. A self-inflicted weariness, wasn't it, Mr. Adams? You have walked out of jobs of your own free will, haven't you?
Yeah.
How many?
2.
2. Why?
I didn't like the work.
You didn't like the hours, the wages, the terms of employment?
Look, bottling firm, anybody find that boring after a bit, wouldn't they? I was trying to do some training too, but it was dead easy. Then I got sent up for an office job because of my exams, but I didn't want that, not a desk job.
No. Mugging was more exciting, wasn't it?
I'd had enough of it. And I'd had enough of Vinny, too.
A little too straightforward for you, was he? But he had been useful to you, hadn't he? I'm suggesting you're hoping he'll be useful to you today. As a fall guy for your murderous attack on Cyril Hubbard. It was all Vinny, wasn't it? Special school, bottom stream, ex-Borstal Vinny, leading you astray down paths you never wanted.
No, I never said that. I never blamed him.
He's taunting you. Do him, do him.
No, it was me that did it, not him.
What do you mean?
But it was my knife. It was in my hand. But I didn't stab him.
So you claim. So you claim. Are you seriously trying to tell us that you let yourself be talked into robbing Cyril Hubbard because you were afraid of being shown up in front of your new friend by Vincent White, the lad who can scarcely read and write? And further, that you held up Cyril Hubbard at knife point to protect this same poor fool from himself? What an angel in disguise you are.
Not an angel, no.
Didn't you ever consider not assaulting anyone at all? Not punching them in the stomach and throwing them to one side to protect Vincent White from himself? Wouldn't it have been best to leave this knife that so interested him safely at home to protect Vincent White from himself? This protective concern came a little late in the day, didn't it? I put it to you, Mr. Adams, that your violent games had got out of hand. The knife was to preserve your sagging reputation. You found yourself trapped. What more natural than to lash out? Didn't you stab Cyril Hubbard to protect yourself, Mr. Adams?
Mrs. Adams, what did you hear of the conversation between your son and Vincent White the early evening of the night Cyril Hubbard died? You had just come in from work, I believe.
Yeah. I were moving about between kitchen and living room, making a fire. I was stopping in.
And Vincent White was with your son when you came in?
Yeah.
Was he a frequent visitor to the house, Mrs. Adams?
No. He were at one time when he were little, but not lately, no. He'd been in prison.
In Borstal?
Yeah.
He was an occasional visitor then?
They'd dropped off with one another. I weren't sorry to see it either. He'd grown into a right lout.
You didn't like Paul seeing Vincent White?
No, because he got him into trouble, that's why.
Do you mean stealing?
You never knew what they'd be up to.
Did you know your son was a thief, Mrs. Adams? A street thief?
Not that, no. No, I didn't know anything about this. They broke into a tobacconist once. I know that because I caught him selling the stuff. Paul admitted it.
He admitted it to you?
Yeah. He will tell the truth.
So, going back to that evening, what did you hear of the conversation between Vincent White and your son?
Vinny were asking him where he'd got the knife from.
Had you seen that knife recently?
Yeah, Paul had found it a day or two previous. Used to have it up on the wall when his dad were alive.
Did you hear Paul give any reason at all for taking the knife out of the house that night?
No. I were tired. I were ready for a sit down. I weren't in kitchen above 2 minutes. But I know he didn't take it out to do anybody any harm. He's not that type.
Did you hear them leave, Mrs. Adams?
Yeah, but we just called through to each other. I asked him had he got his key, and he said he had.
Did you hear your son come in that night?
I was still up. I were going to bed early, but I got watching film.
How did he seem to you? How did he behave?
We were very quiet. He hardly said anything. Too quiet for him, but I didn't give it much thought. Then, when I looked, I saw he'd got this cut under his eye, and he looked scruffy. He'd only got his jeans and his leather jacket on. I said, have you been fighting? He said, no, we've just been fooling about, just passed it off. He didn't want to drink or anything. Just sat watching film for a bit, and then he went to bed. Next thing, police were knocking on the door at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Has your son ever talked to you about that night's events?
Yeah, after he were charged.
Do you believe his story, Mrs. Adams?
Yeah. Paul would never do that, knife anybody. I know. It's his dad. It's his dad all over. Gets himself into a mess. He's no angel. What happened to his dad? Between his dad and me, and then him dying, well, it turned Paul against me for a bit, and he got into trouble. But just lately, we've been getting on very good terms. Look, what he said happened did happen. I know.
Thank you, Mrs. Adams.
You say you heard very little of what passed between your son and Vincent White that night, Mrs. Adams.
No, I weren't in kitchen very long.
Did you notice the knife had gone when your son went out?
No, I didn't.
You appear not to have been very concerned about the possible dangers of such a knife.
Paul had said it were going up on his bedroom wall. I thought he'd taken it up there.
You knew your son had been thieving with White, both when they were children and this recent raid on the tobacconist's shop. You didn't report what you'd found out to the police, Mrs. Adams?
No.
You covered up for him?
Well, when it's your own son.
Yes. You say Paul had just begun to get on good terms again with you. You mean by that, presumably, that you'd not been all that close? He was taken out of your care, wasn't he, for 18 months?
I asked him to, yeah.
Why?
Well, because he was too much for me at that time.
Had you other children at home?
No.
Then what do you mean?
Well, his dad going off like that, then accident and Paul getting into trouble. He was upset. I were upset.
Well, your son was more than upset, Mrs. Adams. Didn't the child psychologist report to the court at the time about his behaviour, about his violent fits of temper about the house? Didn't he fight you and his sister and brother-in-law? Wasn't he uncontrollable, Mrs. Adams? Disturbed, isn't that a more apt description of him at that time? Isn't that why you sent him away?
that was 3 years ago now.
It's not such a long time, Mrs. Adams. No further questions, my lord.
Ian Parker, the court has been told that you usually acted as a lookout, and on September the 16th, this was what you were doing while the accused and Vincent White were waiting in Mason's Lane.
That's right.
This was your usual role?
I helped on a couple of times.
Do you mean to take possessions from your victims?
Yeah.
What was your impression of the relationship between Adams and Vincent White? Was it a close friendship?
No, it were a laugh. Paul went round me in for giggle.
What so amused him about Vincent White?
He'd do anything.
Oh, can you give us an example?
He'd take his pants down the street and go up to women asking for a light, stuff like that.
Wearing what, Mr. Parker?
Well, without wearing anything, he didn't wear no underpants.
Was he solely an object of amusement to the defendant?
Paul stuck up for him.
He protected him.
My lord, Mrs. Bryce really must be careful not to lead this witness.
Yes, this is an important particular, Mrs. Bryce.
Then, if your lordship pleases, I will ask this witness to give an example of what he means by my client sticking up for Mr. White.
Are you able to do that, Mr. Parker?
Yeah.
Go on, then.
There was this guy at a disco said that Vinny had been staring at his girlfriend. He had been as well, pestering her. This guy went for Vinny outside with two of his mates. Paul got him out of that, looked after him.
In what way?
Well, he talked to him, soft soaping.
He reasoned with them?
Yeah.
No violence, fisticuffs? Simple persuasion?
Yeah, he can talk hind legs off a donkey sometimes.
Were you present on this occasion, Mr. Parker?
Yeah.
Yes, all right.
To your knowledge, how frequently had White and the defendant seen one another since Paul Adams had taken up his new job with Heslop Brothers?
Twice. I think he'd had enough of him.
You think?
Yeah, Paul said he were crackers, said he were going to do somebody in one day.
Do you remember when the defendant said this, Mr. Parker?
They'd nearly been caught in one job they'd done, outside a pub, middle of the day. It had been Vinny's idea. He went for this bloke, roughed him up. He went wild.
And the defendant said to you, Vinny's going to do somebody in one day. Now, are these the words, or as nearly the words as you can remember?
Except he called him Killer, but what he always called him.
Yes.
Vinny used to try this tough guy act out. I'm the boss. Oh, he knew in Borstal what he'd picked up. He knew not really, it were all talk.
Was this talk directed particularly at you?
Well, Paul as well, when we were going to do something.
Meaning another assault?
Yeah, with the keenest. He's still hung on for Paul, though.
Now, did Paul Adams ever use a knife in his attacks?
No.
Did he ever carry one?
No.
Would he carry one going out with you?
No, never did.
Did anyone suggest doing it with a knife that night of September the 16th?
Vinny, yeah, he were always full of plans.
Was the suggestion to use the defendant's knife in the assault?
Yeah, he said it were an idea.
What was Paul Adams' reaction to this idea?
Took it as a joke.
What happened after you left the pub that night?
Well, I hung on because I knew Hubbard. I followed him up road, keeping an eye out to make sure nobody following him on.
Down Mason's Lane?
Yeah, and there was this couple coming. So I nipped down entry to let Paul and Vinny know there was somebody on the way. If there were any trouble, I could make out her on my way home. It's dark down there. And I just sees Paul standing. He's just stood. I didn't see the bloke at first. He were right underneath wall. And I thought, what's gone off? Have they let him through? Then Paul says, he went straight into me.
No, let's get this quite clear. He said he went straight into me. Not it, meaning the knife, went straight into him.
No, he went straight into me. He's just standing there. I said, there's somebody coming. Come on, he said, I think I've killed him. Didn't know what he were talking about. I said, where are they? Meaning Vinny and Civil Hubbard. It were only when we ran past that I saw Hubbard on the floor, all hunched up. I thought they'd knocked him out or winded him or something. Only when we got back to the estate that I heard what had happened.
Now, how did you hear?
Well, Paul went for Vinny and he called him all names under the sun. Then Paul sat down outside the road.
Did he say anything?
He said, I think I've killed him or something like that. Then Vinny says, what's happened to the knife? That's when I realised what they were talking about.
Was anything more said, Mr. Parker?
Well, this car turned into the street. Paul got up and walked on, keeping his head away from lights. He's still cursing Vinny. Then he really went for him, full-scale row all over one another, rolling up floor and that. I kept out of it, me. Then this woman came out, it were her guard, and they were fighting him. She started shouting about louts and hooligans and fetching police. They cleared off then, I think. I was already on my way home.
You were at the time of the crime, and you remain, I presume, a friend of Paul Adams?
Yeah.
A good friend?
Yeah.
A loyal friend?
Yeah.
What did you like about him?
We were mates.
Well, yes, but what did you like about him?
We were one at lads.
You mean he'd go along with what other lads were doing?
No, I knew what suited him.
He wouldn't just follow anybody willy-nilly.
No.
Now, was he brighter, more intelligent than many other boys of your acquaintance?
Yeah.
And considerably more intelligent than Vincent White. There's no comparison, is there, Mr. Parker?
No.
Would he be inclined, then, to follow slavishly what Vincent White wanted him to do?
No.
He was a bit of a leader, had some initiative.
Yeah.
Would you say you admired the accused?
A bit.
Only a bit, Mr. Parker. Don't you still admire the accused, even after all that's happened?
I do, yeah. He didn't kill him.
That is for the jury to decide, Mr. Parker, not you. Members of the jury, you know the expression, "we was robbed," as used, for example, by football supporters finding excuses for their team's dismal performance. Any excuses? We was robbed. And doesn't this young man's defence smack of that? The attack on Cyril Hubbard was one of a series of crimes committed by the accused in which ordinary members of the public were intimidated, casually discarded, punched in the stomach and left to pick themselves up. In short, mugged. A sharp, brutal, and entirely appropriate word in the pursuit of what? Money, excitement, as compensation for a dreary and unrewarding existence. We've heard a great deal about the accused's excuses for his conduct. But English law is based on a criterion of personal responsibility for one's actions. It's on these principles of self-control that a civilized society depends. The accused has had an opportunity to give his version of events in full mitigating detail. But remember Cyril Hubbard, members of the jury. He is not here to tell his story today. It was he that was robbed that night of September the 16th. He fought back and lost his life.
Does what you have heard of the events of this unfortunate night suggest the scheming and planning that you associate with the terrible crime of murder, members of the jury? Doesn't the defendant's version of events, accidental, casual, with always the possibility of their taking another course entirely, doesn't this have the ring of truth? He stated that he relieved Vincent White of the knife, or brought along, you will remember, at White's instigation to show to Ian Parker, to prevent White from committing an offence that Paul Adams feared, knowing as well as anyone White's nature and past history. He now finds himself accused of that precise offence. Paul Adams' early criminal record stands before you. Blameworthy, yes, but non-violent. Remember Ian Parker's account of Adams talking Vincent White out of some trouble at a dance hall rather than helping him to fight his way out. Such physical force as was used in Paul Adams' assaults was a means to an end. The concept may not appeal, but it has been clearly and consistently stated. The crime of September the 16th was a momentary aberration, at the end of a routine which he had outgrown and of which he was weary. I submit to you, members of the jury, that Cyril Hubbard's death was an accident, a stroke of lightning almost, in which Paul Adams was the unwitting agent.
Members of the jury, you have a difficult task in this case. When considering the evidence of accomplices, you must treat it with mistrust, except when it is corroborated by independent evidence. Remember, too, that my instructions to you were that although the accused's previous offences have had a substantial and necessary bearing in the evidence of this case, you must put aside any repugnance that you might feel at these offences. It is a single charge of murder that is before you. If you conclude that this was a calculated or willful act, then you must find the defendant guilty. If, on the other hand, you are doubtful or find deficient the Crown's evidence supporting the Crown's case, then your verdict should be that of manslaughter. In this case, what manslaughter means is that if you form the conclusion that whilst in the course of robbery, the accused had in his possession this knife with no intention of using it, but in circumstances where any reasonable person, if he'd thought about it, must have known of the possible consequences, and that the accused failed to heed those consequences, then manslaughter should be your verdict. You'll have to decide the state of the accused's mind and intentions from the evidence that you've heard. Now will you please retire, elect a foreman to speak for you, and try to reach a unanimous verdict.
Will the foreman please stand? Have you reached a verdict upon which you are all agreed?
Yes.
On the first count that Paul Adams, on the 16th of September 1977 at Fulchester, did murder Cyril Hubbard, what is your verdict? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
On the second count that Paul Adams, on the 16th of September 1977 at Fulchester, did unlawfully kill Cyril Hubbard, what is your verdict? Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Paul Adams, you have been convicted of a most serious crime. I would like to make it clear to this court and through the press to those outside that I intend to ensure that streets are made as safe for the ordinary citizens of this country as it is within my power to do. I therefore have no hesitation in sentencing you to a term of 6 years' imprisonment.
You can join us again when our cameras return to bring you another case from the Crown Court.